On today's show, whose stock has risen and whose stock has fallen as a result of these U18 World Championships? All coming up on today's episode of Locked On NHL Prospects.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this podcast, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. I'm Tij Iginla, Director of North American Scouting for Dobber Prospects, joined by Sebastian High, Head Scout and Director of European Scouting for Dobber Prospects. And on today's show, we'll be looking at the risers and fallers as a result of this U18 World Championship. Like it or not, even if it's a small tournament with really inconsistent levels of competition, this is a tournament that matters to scouts. You only have to look at the stands, see who's there to know that. So we'll look at the risers first and foremost. We'll look at the players whose stock rose up, guys like Linus Eriksson, Alex Zetterberg. In the first segment, we'll focus a bit more on Europeans. In the second segment, we'll look at the stock up for the Team Canada and Team USA, the two finalists in this tournament. And then in our third segment, we'll look at the stock down, players like Gabriel Eliason, Carson Wetsch, guys who didn't impress as much at this tournament. Before I get into any of that, though, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. Leave us a comment letting us know what you want us to talk about next. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, make sure to make us your first listen of the day. So let's get things started right away here with the risers. Let's start with Sweden. They had two really good forwards who impressed a bit more than where their stock was before the U18 Worlds. They had a couple of really good pieces on defense. We know very well about Leo Salin Vilenius and Alphonse Frey, the two left-handed defensemen who are mainly puck movers, mainly offensive. But at forward, this class is relatively bad. There isn't a lot to hope for, but there's two prospects who definitely rose their stock. Talk me through, first and foremost, Linus Eriksson, who's been on the rise for a while now.
Yeah, he has been. Linus Eriksson's a 6-foot, 185-pound left shot centerman who's been playing this season in professional hockey with Djurgården in Hockey Allsvenskan, and he played excellently at this tournament, putting up 7 points, and he was also playing a real two-way role, doing a little bit of everything in all three zones, and he was also the captain of the Swedish squad, so he certainly played a big role in terms of leadership on top of all of that. And while he may lack a super high-end individual puck skill, whether it be the playmaking, the shooting, or the handling ability, he has a high motor. He's really intelligent positionally, and that's true on both sides of the puck. His defensive impact was yet again strong, and it's been strong as well against pro competition this year, and he was certainly a bright spot for Sweden. Beyond him, we also have Alexander Zetterberg, who is an undersized 5'8", 159-pound right shot center or winger, probably a winger if we're making professional level projections here. And he excelled on the man advantage for Sweden at this tournament. He only played in 4 games, but he put up 2 goals and 5 points and was constantly a threat. He was buzzing around the half wall, constantly both a one-timer option, but also a playmaking threat from that position. And I thought that he'd certainly rose his stock by a couple dozen draft picks in this tournament. And his back half of the season has certainly been a lot stronger than the first half was. He's added a lot to his motor. His off-puck engagement's improved. His scanning habits have improved. His positioning has become a bit more consistent. But what have you thought about his game so far?
Yeah, with me for Zetterberg, I think the main standout has been the anticipation. I didn't expect him to be at the start of the year, what made me really sour on him was the fact that he didn't really have anything to surround his skill as an undersized player in order to get to spots early, to separate himself from opponents, to find open space, to work with that open space, and to make plays inside of, in between checks, right? But in this tournament, what was really clear with Zetterberg is that he was consistently able to find that space. He was always thinking a step ahead of, where's the space going to open up. It was especially clear on the power play, the way that he could sneak on defenders' heels, find little pockets of space behind their backs, that kind of stuff was really good. And it takes a lot of awareness and anticipation to be able to do that. You need to identify when your defenseman turns around, when he's not scanning on you, when he's not looking over his shoulder, and being able to identify, okay, now is the time to pounce into that pocket. And Zetterberg was consistently able to do that. But to circle back on Linus Eriksson, I think this tournament was a masterclass in habits from Linus Eriksson. reloading under the puck, creating speed differentials in transition by consistently kind of staying under the puck, but also kind of building up speed under the puck where he could take a bump pass in transition in the neutral zone and just skate it in. It was little things like his dumping habits, the way that he initiates contact before getting into puck battles. Like, there were so many little kind of intricate things that he was doing in this tournament that were really, really good. And that's the part that really impressed me. And I think that, in this tournament, skill really is the name of the game. You look at the top of the leaderboard and score and scoring, and it's Gavin McKenna and James Higgins and Cole Hutson, and those guys were chock full of skill. But anticipation and habits really take you a long way, and I think both Eriksson and Zetterberg really showed that. But moving on to the finish side, we have three names on the finish side that we wanted to point out. Talk me through, first and foremost, Heikki Ruohonen, who was really good at this tournament, put up 5 points. The profile, what you liked about his game, talk me through that.
Yeah, so he's a 6'1", 196-pound left shot center, one of the younger players eligible for the 2024 NHL Draft. It's a June 19th, 06 birthday. And at this tournament, he scored 3 goals and 5 points through 5 games. I thought that he was consistently one of Finland's more implicated and visible players on the ice. He uses his reach and his strength really intelligently. He's very big. He's a big, solid frame for sure, and he was protecting possession really well on puck. He was using his size to win possession as well. Defensively, he wasn't afraid to use his high motor to make a bit of an impact on the defensive side of the puck as well. And even though he did have more goals than assists in this tournament, I thought that his playmaking had more consistent, bright flashes here, and he has a really nice toolkit with especially hook passes, where he uses his long reach really, really intelligently to get around opposing defenders, which is at its most effective here against junior competition. And I thought he had a strong tournament here for sure.
Absolutely. Regarding Saarelainen, Joona Saarelainen, I was pretty impressed with this tournament as well. Showed a lot of pace, a lot of energy. Only scored 5 points, but honestly was a big standout for me in terms of consistently getting involved in transitions, consistently jumping into plays, showing a lot of energy on the forecheck as well. But really, I think this transition game is what stood out with him. Puck skill wise, is kind of in the same boat as Linus Eriksson. Not much of a standout tool in any direction, but just an effective buzzsaw middle six guy for Finland, who really kind of uplifted the skill sets of the guys he was playing with. When you're playing with Consta Helenius and Emil Hemming and those kind of more skilled guys, you need to be able to offer the things that they don't. And Saarelainen was very adaptable, I thought, in this tournament. Was really impressed with this game. But lastly, a player that is a riser because of things that we wanted to see from him, rather than just increasing the pace and skill level and whatever it is. Like, for me, Emil Hemming for Finland was a big standout. And it goes beyond the goal scoring ability. He was defensively responsible. He was involved in every situation. Like, what'd you think of this tournament overall?
I thought it was very strong, and he certainly didn't look like one of the younger players on that Finnish lineup. Like, he's also a late June 06 birthday, but he's 6'2", 194 pounds, one of the more solidly built players in that entire lineup. And the habits certainly also shown with that maturity, and it certainly showed what he learned this season by playing a fourth line checking role in Liga all year long for TPS, where he only scored 7 goals and 11 points, but doesn't exactly hold a candle to Consta Helenius' production this year. But he certainly learned a lot of professional chops this season, and he was certainly standing out as a bit of a man amongst boys in some of the games. I thought his game against the States was a little bit weaker, but he was still bombing off shots on the power play. He was certainly using the shot a ton in this tournament, which I loved to see because it is such a tremendous tool. And I think that he's shown an understanding of his strengths and his weaknesses. And in this tournament, he was using his goal scoring, his shot, just as much as he was his motor and his strong stick work defensively, and that back checking ability, which have really been grown over the course of this season.
For sure. And that's our first segment. We'll get into our second, where we talk about some more risers. We'll focus on Canada and USA in the second segment and their risers in this tournament. We'll get into that in a second, but just before, a quick word from our sponsors at Game Time and Indeed. If you're looking for cheap tickets last minute to any event, Game Time is the best place to get them. Game Time is a great source for tickets, especially last minute. And it's not just for sports, it's for any event, whether that's comedy, theater, or any game that you'd like. Game Time has you covered. Game Time has a bunch of deals. They're obsessed with saving you money. They've got a bunch of deals from flash deals to zone deals. My favorite lately has been last minute deals where you can save up to 60% by buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. And on top of that, the Game Time guarantee makes sure that you always get the best price. If you find a ticket in the same section and row for the same price, for cheaper than what Game Time has to offer you, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, super simple. You just create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. So download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. There is no I in team, but there is an I in Indeed. And that's why that's the hiring platform that you need to build your team. When you're hiring, Indeed is the best place to get that done. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. So instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's powerful hiring platform can help you do it all in one place. Indeed streamlines hiring with powerful tools that find you matched candidates. And with Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment that they sponsor a job, according to Indeed US data. One of the things I love about Indeed personally is, myself, I've got my job through Indeed, and Indeed really helped me get settled really quickly with my job and made sure that the hiring process was easy and simple. There were no surprises. You know exactly what you're getting. You know exactly what the job asks of you. So you know exactly what you're getting when you're looking to get hired through Indeed. So I can only imagine how much easier it is for Indeed employers. So start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job posts at Indeed.com/locked-on. This offer is good for a limited time, so claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/locked-on. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Alrighty, so for our second segment, let's look at the risers for Canada and USA in this tournament. We'll start off with Team Canada because there's a couple of guys we can look at that were really impressive, but USA's got a long laundry list of guys we can look at as well. So starting off for Canada, among the 2024 NHL Draft eligibles, Tij Iginla was a big standout, right?
Oh, he certainly was. If there was any doubt of him going top 10 come NHL Draft Day, those doubts have been quelled. The 6 foot, 185-pound left shot winger has played a bit at center as well, but likely projects as a winger, who is an August 1st birthday, so very young for the draft class. He put up a very impressive 6 goals and 12 points through 7 games at this tournament. And it wasn't just the point production. There was so much more that shone so very brightly here, whether it be the high-end board battle ability, the excellent motor, the shining playmaking game that was really complementing his goal-scoring ability, and just the consistent high-end level of intelligence, anticipation, and selecting the right tool for the right situation in every single play throughout the entire tournament. Iginla was fantastic.
Absolutely. For me, Iginla was just all over the place in these games. The energy, the board battles. I mean, no one gets off the board as well as he does in this draft. I don't even think Macklin Celebrini does it as well. Like, he's just up there in terms of his ability to consistently find space off the boards and to make plays to the middle of the ice. It's just an amazing part of his game. But moving on, we have to talk about Carter George. This was an amazing tournament from him, and he solidified himself for me as a top goaltender in this draft. It was more of a question, and I actually saw Leanders and Ryson Leanders, which was his backup in this tournament, as the better goalie in the first couple of games. I mean, he was a player of the game for Canada in a game that Canada scored 8 goals in that game. They weren't lacking scoring, but Ryson Leanders kept him in that one. He was the main reason that they were in this tournament, in that game. And he played some decent hockey, but Carter George really stood on his head in that gold medal game. He was the only reason Canada was in it. It was the only reason Canada was able to get back in it to start with. So yeah, I mean, Carter George was amazing. The puck tracking ability, the composure especially, was something I didn't expect out of him. The composure really took a big jump forward in this year, and it was really clear in this tournament. But beyond that, I mean, he's a very comfortable puck-playing goaltender as well. I mean, he got a primary assist on Gavin McKenna's dagger that that empty net goal he scored against USA. He was the guy who passed it to him. So, Carter George outscored a couple forwards in this tournament. But we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, amazing tournament from him. But we need to talk about the USA guys. There's a couple guys we need to talk about. Let's start off with Cole Hutson. He was amazing in this tournament, right?
Oh, yeah, he was fantastic. He was the leading points producer among all draft eligible players in this tournament, only being beaten by the three outstanding like underage players in Gavin McKenna, James Higgins, and Porter Martone. Through 7 games, he put up 4 goals and 13 points, and he certainly showed exactly why the offensive game projects so well to the next level, just as it did with Lane Hudson. And there's a definite difference between the two players and how they use their tools in the offensive zone. And I don't think that many scouts quite believe that Cole Hutson projects quite as well offensively as Lane did. That said, the dynamism, the intelligence with the puck on his stick, the like comfort in generating like very, very, very controlled zone entries at a very high rate was consistently a difference making factor for Team USA at this tournament. Whenever there was someone panicking around with the puck bobbling, they would just send it back to Cole Hutson and he would study the play, whether they be in the neutral zone or in the offensive zone. He was consistently a player that his team could rely on to get the puck to a better place than where he received it. And while there were certainly still some defensive lackings in his play at this tournament, that's been a factor all season long. I think that he's quelled a couple of the doubts that we have had in how capable he has been in leveraging the offensive tools to make a difference in changing games. And even in the gold medal game, 2 of the USA goals in the second period were created entirely by Cole Hutson.
Yeah, absolutely. But moving on, we've got a bunch of guys to talk about on USA side. But I do want to just go quickly through these guys. Brody Ziemer, Teddy Stiga, and Max Plant were 3 big standouts. They're all 2024 NHL Draft eligibles. Ziemer is really translatable, really mature. I love the habits. And he showed some goal-scoring touch as well and some playmaking ability in this tournament. Teddy Stiga, a pure playmaker, but was really able to showcase his multifaceted abilities. He's another kind of Swiss Army knife guy. Max Plant is the purest playmaker you'll get. He's throwing everything at the slot. He's connecting with teammates in the slot. It's amazing to watch. He also raised his stock in this tournament. I think he's a bona fide top 50 pick now for me. Like him, Stiga, and Ziemer are all top 50 now. For me, Ziemer and Stiga were borderline. Ziemer and Plant were borderline. Stiga was a bona fide first rounder. But he's closer to 20 than 30 to me now. But we need to talk about Cole Eiserman because Cole Eiserman showed a lot of what I wanted to see from him in this tournament. And yeah, even though he had 9 goals and 1 assist, I actually liked his playmaking and passing and distribution in this tournament, which was something I wasn't really expecting from Eiserman. He's still not a defensive ace by any means, but he showed some energy. He was getting back. He was making plays. He back-checked at one point and stopped a goal. I don't remember if it was against Canada or Finland or whoever it was, but there was a specific instance where I was like, oh, wow, Eiserman can do that? There was a lot of that in this tournament for me. A lot of situations where I didn't expect Eiserman to do a thing based on what I've seen from him all season, and then he does it, and I'm really impressed. So I think Eiserman has. I'd be remiss if he still ends up at 15th in our rankings. I'd like to bump him up a bit at Dobber. If we can get him in the top 10, that'd be great because he's shown a bit more of what I wanted to see from him. So he's capable of it. That was my big concern with him: is he even capable of passing the puck at a high level? And he was in this tournament. But that's our second segment regarding the risers. We've ended the risers list. We'll get into the fallers, so the prospects who didn't impress as much, had either bad tournaments or didn't really show much of note. We'll get into that in just a second, but just before, a quick word from our sponsors at Monopoly Go. We've all been there, either as a player or a fan. It's a second intermission and the scoreboard's not looking good. You're feeling low. You're not sure if your team can pull out a win. And that's when you dig deep. You lift your head up and you say to yourself, it's time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, and take as much of my friends' money as I possibly can. That's right. The Smash Mobile hit game, Monopoly Go, lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime with tons of new twists including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. There's so much to do. You can play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards. You can make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball. And you can charge other players rent for your iconic properties just like classic Monopoly. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or Google Play. Alrighty, so let's close things off here with the fallers of this tournament, the prospects who didn't impress and hurt their draft stock a tiny bit. I want to start off by highlighting Gabriel Eliason, and this is a prospect who neither one of us really had in high esteem heading into this tournament, but he was being talked about, especially by guys like Bob McKenzie as a potential second rounder, that kind of stuff, and he was on a lot of lists for players to watch. A guy that, this guy could impress at this tournament. He's a big, fluid, left-handed defenseman, 6'6", 200 pounds, skates like the wind. He's young as all hell for this age group. He's a September birthday, so one of the youngest players in the 2024 NHL Draft. But yeah, this is not a top 3 rounder, right? Like this was an awful tournament, and it was just an extension of what we've seen all year from him in J20, right?
It certainly was. Like one of the most like common overlying themes with Eliason over the course of this season has been really problematic decision making, especially in terms of taking many penalties for very limited reasons, just consistent roughing calls, and that was certainly the case at this tournament. He was consistently benched in almost every single game at some stage. Against Canada, I don't even think he logged 5 minutes of ice time in the biggest game of the tournament for Sweden, and there was a reason for that. Like, while some of the tools are quite good, certainly, whether it be the skating or the physicality, the combination of really, really poor decision making, whether it be off puck or on puck, as well as just being a transition and offensive black hole, and also being like weirdly passive against the rush when he isn't chasing hits. It has not been it for Gabriel Eliason in my viewing so far this season. He's really struggled. I have not seen a player that I would take on draft day, let alone in the top 3 rounds at this stage just yet. And obviously he's young for the draft class, and we'll see how his development progresses. But I've had my doubts all season long, and those doubts have been doubled down on at this stage after this tournament.
For sure. I think the big thing for me is just there isn't much forethought in his game. And for a player who's that big and that fluid, like I understand he's very young, he's very raw, but Matt Schaefer has been making better decisions and he's younger. Kashan Aitchison, same thing. Luka Radovojevic, same thing. There's a long list of D-1s at this tournament who have been thinking and playing at a higher level than Gabriel Eliason. And for a player this big, this mobile, and this strong, you would expect more impact. And he not only was he not impactful, he was a detriment on most games. Like it was bad hockey. And sorry to you, Gabriel, if you're watching this, but it's difficult. It was a really difficult tournament for this prospect. Moving on to Atos Koivu, the son of Saku Koivu, who was also a prospect who was starting to gain traction before this tournament at the U18 Worlds. He was actually a prospect I highlighted in our prospects to watch for the tournament episode. And yeah, 1 point in this tournament, didn't really impress much, wasn't really able to impact much. I wasn't as impressed with what he was able to do in this tourney. It wasn't the best level of hockey. And beyond that, this is a player who really excels at the half wall, who's got a great shot from the half wall, either one-timer, catch and release. He's very deceptive from the half wall as well. He's able to connect plays from that position, but I didn't really see much of that in this tournament, especially with Emil Hemming playing in his usual spot, which is the left half wall. I think that rotation kind of caused things to be a bit more difficult for him in this tourney. But moving on to Carson Wetsch of Team Canada, who had, I wouldn't say a difficult tournament, but just an uninspiring one. And especially with the options that Canada had at this tourney, the guys they could have sent to this U18 Worlds, guys like Michael Hage and Miguel Marquez, who stayed at home in favor of Carson Wetsch. I was really looking for Wetsch to be an impactful bottom 6 guy, and I don't think I saw a single situation where Wetsch improved the condition of the puck. He kind of stumbled into his 3 points in this tournament, right?
Yeah, like I can't remember each specific point that he scored here. I mean, Canada had some pretty high scoring games there, but in my viewings of Wetsch at this tournament, he was consistently like the fourth line player that was having the least significant impact. And obviously, it's Team Canada. Their fourth liners are some players that might even go in the first round. Like Liam Greenshoe is playing some fourth line minutes by the end of the tournament. But Carson Wetsch, I thought, a very Hockey Canada type of pick to bring to a tournament. Like he brought a little bit of intensity, but that struggle to keep up with the pace of play mentally with such teammates that are just so pacey, so intelligent. I thought that he stuck out a little bit in not the most positive light. In terms of NHL projection, I still think we're talking about a player that projects as like a fourth liner, and that's about it. I don't see too much of a top nine upside with this player. But I mean, he was an assistant captain for Team Canada, and to be part of the captain group of the team that won the gold medal, I'm sure he had an impact in terms of the leadership on the ice and off the ice. But in terms of just the raw things that we see from the television screen, I wasn't overly impressed with his output.
Absolutely. I also want to talk about Charlie Ellic for Team Canada, because even though he was the first pair defenseman for Canada, I really wanted to see more from him. I know he has two-way ability. I know he has the capability to impact the game both defensively and offensively, but he was primarily a defensive defenseman. He was doing pretty good against the rush. He was defending the rush fairly well, stopping opponents from setting up in the zone, blocking shots, all that good stuff. But I felt like he couldn't make two passes in a row. He just wasn't capable of doing that. So there was a bit of a step back for me offensively from Charlie Ellic. But in terms of that blue line for Canada, I mean, everyone was good defensively. But for me, the big standout obviously was Matt Schaefer, who's a 2025 guy. We won't talk about him too much in this episode, but he was really good. Onre Kos as well wasn't too impressive. Only 1 point in this tournament. Played some classic Onre Kos, energetic, forechecking, defensively responsible hockey. But this is a player who hasn't really changed his game since the start of the year, right?
No, he hasn't. And I was really hoping and expecting for a little bit more, especially offensively and on the puck, from Onre Kos at this tournament against his own age group, because he's been playing a lot of professional hockey this year in Mestis. And in that league, his role has been very much restricted to what you've already said there: the defensive side, the intensity, the off puck game, positionally sound, so on and so forth. But yeah, it was a very quiet tournament for Kos, and he's a player that I liked a lot, especially in like the middle portion of the scouting cycle back in like November, December, January. But since then, I haven't seen too much, and he was injured for a good chunk of time there. But I was hoping to see him come back with a blast, which he didn't quite do.
Absolutely. And I want to end things off with a bomb. I think Trevor Conley harmed his draft stock in this tournament, and it has nothing to do with his performances. He scored a Michigan. He showed off amazing skill. He was a force in transition, was able to cut through defenses like nothing, especially against those weaker teams. He's got the skill, but NHL teams value character, and a player taking that nonsensical of a penalty and that key of a moment in that key of a game, there's no way NHL teams look at that and think, "Oh, this is a top 10 pick." Like the skill is there. No one denies it. No one is doubting the skill with Conley. He showcased that since the start of the year. But that hit to the head of Ryder Ritchie was unnecessary to start with. Ritchie wasn't to stop a play from happening. It was just to throw the body and show that he can hit. And to do that with 10 minutes left with a 1-goal lead against Team Canada in the gold medal game, I bet my money that teams looked at that and went, "We're not drafting this kid." So I'd say 20 to 30 at most is where he ends up in the draft, but we'll see how it plays out on draft day. I just needed to mention this, not because he performed poorly, because again, super skilled player, but because NHL teams value character and clutch ability and composure, and Conley showed none of that in this gold medal game. But that wraps things up for today's show. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. Leave us a comment letting us know what you want us to talk about next. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, make sure to make us your first listen of the day and leave us a rate and review. It helps the channel out a lot. For your second listen of the day, make sure to check out Locked On Sports Today. They've got all your news and updates about what's going on around sports on a 24/7 channel over on YouTube. And make sure to tune in for our next shows as we continue our prospect coverage for the month of May. This has been Hattie Kalikesh with Sebastian High, and we hope you tune in next time.